Deep in the mountains, where rivers whisper ancient truths and the wind caresses the leaves with infinite tenderness, lived an old master named Ryōkan. His life was simple. He woke with the sun, drank tea with serenity, and spent his days observing nature in its eternal transformation. Often, villagers would climb to his cabin in search of advice, but Ryōkan rarely offered direct answers. Instead, he smiled with the calm of one who has understood the flow of time. One day, a young disciple named Haru arrived at his door, brow furrowed and heart uneasy. "Master," he said impatiently, "I have practiced meditation. I have followed your teachings, but I still feel trapped by anxiety. I want to understand patience, but every day that passes, I become more impatient." Ryōkan looked at him kindly and asked him to follow. Without saying a word, they walked to a small young tree growing beside a stream. "Haru," said the master, "pull this branch with all your strength." The young man, without hesitation, grabbed the branch and pulled it with determination. The branch bent, but did not yield. With even more force, Haru pulled again until, with a snap, the branch broke in his hands. Ryōkan nodded and gathered the fragments. "Now observe this other branch," he said, pointing to another that bent with the breeze without breaking. "It does not resist, it does not hurry, it simply adapts to the wind." Haru frowned. "What does this mean, master?" "It means that patience is not about enduring rigidly, but learning to bend without breaking. Those who are impatient fight against the wind, while those who are patient learn to move with it." The disciple looked at the tree, feeling the lesson carve itself into his being like the reflection of the moon on water. And thus, he began to understand. The next day, Ryōkan handed Haru an empty cup and led him to the stream. "Fill this cup with the river's water," he instructed. Haru obeyed and dipped the cup. However, when he tried to lift it quickly, the water spilled. He tried again more carefully, but with the slightest movement, the water trembled and escaped. The master observed in silence until the young man stopped, frustrated. "Master, no matter how many times I try, the water always moves and spills." Ryōkan smiled. "Water cannot be hurried. If you try to take it with anxiety, it will slip through your fingers. But if you allow it to rest in the cup without rushing, it will stay with you." Haru looked at the cup with new understanding. Patience was not just waiting. It was knowing how to hold the present moment without forcing it. From that day, he began to apply this lesson in every aspect of his life, learning to flow with time instead of fighting against it. Months passed, and Haru continued to train under Ryōkan's guidance. One day, the master took him to a cliff from which they could see the entire valley. There, he pointed to a tall, sturdy bamboo. "Haru, observe the bamboo. What do you see?" The young man meditated for a moment before responding. "It is strong but also flexible. When the wind blows, it bends without breaking." Ryōkan nodded. "Exactly. But before it grew so tall, the bamboo spent years developing its roots deep in the earth. During that time, it seemed to grow not at all. Only when its roots were deep enough did it begin to rise toward the sky." Haru reflected on these words. So, patience is also trusting in what is unseen. Even though it seems we are not progressing, we are putting down roots. The master smiled with satisfaction. "That's right, Haru. True patience is not only enduring the wait, but understanding that each moment has its purpose." As time went by, Haru applied the master's teachings in his daily life, but he still felt his patience being tested. One day, while gathering firewood in the forest, he found a cocoon hanging from a branch. He stopped to watch it, and noticing that a butterfly was struggling to emerge, he felt an impulse to help. Gently, he opened the cocoon with his fingers, allowing the butterfly to emerge faster. However, as he did so, he noticed that the insect's wings were weak and could not support its flight. The butterfly wobbled and fell to the ground, unable to fly. Haru felt a weight in his heart as he realized what he had done. That afternoon, he told Ryōkan about the incident. The master listened in silence and then said, "Every process has its time. If you try to rush something's growth, you may deprive it of its true strength." Haru lowered his gaze. "I wanted to help, but I ended up hurting it." Ryōkan nodded gently. "The same happens with us. Struggle is part of growth. Accepting the natural rhythm of life is the greatest test of patience." Haru understood that patience was not just about waiting without anxiety, but allowing life to follow its course without unnecessary interference. From that day, he learned to trust in time, in effort, and in the transformation that only comes when the moment is right. As the years passed, Haru became an exemplary disciple. One day, Ryōkan took him to the top of the mountain and pointed to the horizon. "Haru, tell me, what do you see?" The young man observed the vast landscape, the green hills, the winding river, and the clouds floating in the sky. "I see the immensity of the world, Master. Everything follows its course without haste." Ryōkan smiled. "That's right. Nature does not hurry, yet everything is fulfilled. Patience is the art of being in harmony with the rhythm of existence." Haru closed his eyes, breathed deeply, and felt the peace that only true patience can give. Finally, he understood that patience was not just a virtue, but a way of life. The days passed, and Haru began to share his master's teachings with other young people who came seeking wisdom. One day, one of his own disciples asked him, "Master Haru, how will I know if I have learned true patience?" Haru smiled and replied, "When you stop asking how much longer." Time passed, and Haru became a wise master, known throughout the region. However, one day a man arrived who was unlike the others. He was an elderly man who had traveled from distant lands, and upon arriving before Haru, he asked a question that puzzled the disciple. "Master Haru, how can I learn to be patient when life has taken everything I loved? How can I wait for something good when everything I have known has crumbled?" Haru calmly observed the elderly man and led him to a small clearing in the forest. There, he showed them a lush tree that seemed to have become trapped between rocks. The tree's roots extended downward, searching for water, but the rock kept it bound. Yet, the tree had begun to grow through the crack, twisting and adapting to the difficult situation. "This tree," said Haru, "is not patient because it waits calmly. It is patient because it does not refuse to grow, even when life has challenged it. It does not surrender to the rocks, nor to the difficulty." Patience does not mean simply waiting. It means moving forward despite everything, because there is always a way to go. The elderly man looked at the tree in awe. "So, is patience more than just waiting?" "Yes," Haru replied. "It is the strength to continue, even when the circumstances are tough. Patience is not resignation. It is the courage to keep searching for the way to grow, even in the darkest moments." The elderly man nodded, and for the first time in a long time, a faint smile appeared on his face. Years passed, and Haru faced many moments of trial. Nature continued its course, and although the peace he had found in patience seemed deep, there were days when pain and uncertainty shook him. He remembered his master's teachings, but it was not always easy to apply them. One day, while meditating by the river, a storm began to brew. The rain fell heavily, and the wind lashed the waters, creating furious waves. Haru, although used to calm, felt a growing anxiety in the face of the storm. His thoughts clouded, and for a moment he forgot everything he had learned. At that moment, he heard Ryōkan's voice in his mind. "Remember, Haru, patience is not just the calm of the river on peaceful days, but the ability to be in the eye of the storm. Haru closed his eyes, breathed deeply, and allowed the storm to follow its course. Instead of fighting against it, he accepted its presence. As he did so, he felt something settle within him. He could not control the wind or the rain, but he could choose how to respond to them. Thus, the storm passed, and when calm returned, Haru understood that true patience was the total acceptance of the experience, without resisting the natural flow of life. As time passed, Haru became a wise elder, known for his deep serenity. One day, while walking through the forest, he met a young man who, upon seeing him, asked with uncertainty, "Master Haru, how do I find the peace that you have? It seems as if you are never unsettled." Haru, observing the young man, led him to a special place in the forest, where an ancient oak tree stood majestically. "Look at this tree," said the master. "What do you see?" "A strong tree," replied the young man. "That seems not to have moved with the years." "But look closely," said Haru. "This tree has lived through many seasons. It has faced storms, received the sun, experienced cold winters, and still stands here. It has not resisted life, but has grown with it." Patience is not about remaining static. It is about flowing with life, being flexible in the face of circumstances. The young man looked at the tree with new understanding, and Haru continued, "The peace you seek is not something to be found in stillness, but in the acceptance of change and time. Each moment has its own rhythm, and learning to be in harmony with it is true peace." The young disciple spent the following days meditating under the oak, absorbing Haru's teachings. Over time, he understood that patience was not an effort, nor an attempt to be calm, but the ability to live fully in the present, without anxiety for the future or regret for the past. One day, near the end of his time with Haru, he asked with a smile, "Master, is there ever a moment when one no longer needs to practice patience?" Haru looked at him serenely and, with a gentle voice, replied, "Patience is like the river. It never stops flowing, and it always has something to teach us. When you stop learning, you stop living." Patience is not an achievement, but an endless path, an art that is perfected with each step. The young man understood that true patience was not a destination to reach, but a way of being, a way of living each moment with the heart open to the flow of life. Thus, Haru, the master of patience, continued his path in silence, knowing that teaching never ends, that each step is part of an eternal cycle.